Order online at picassospizza.net.
Everybody, welcome to this Trainwreck Sports podcast where we are here to pay the bills. Presented by Picasso's Pizza. Get your Picasso's Pizza anywhere nationwide and in Western New York at picassospizza.net. We're here Tuesday night. The Buffalo Bills win another. I still feel like game of the year is probably week one, the most exciting game, but this got to be up there. This will be a top a bunch of the list. And the snow game, honestly, maybe the snow pushes it over. So another game of the year candidate as Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals came into Orchard Park, put on a show, but the Bills and Josh Allen put on a show themselves, get the win, and now the Bills are 9-4 with slim AFC East hopes, but still very much alive in that race heading into the real game of the year here, at least one that we did not expect to be the game of the year, heading into New England at 1:00 on Sunday. It's going to be a great show here tonight, and I'm going to start with Carson Hayek. Carson, your thoughts after the win over the Bengals, and how are you feeling about the Bills and their outlook and just Josh Allen's ability to potentially carry this team into the playoffs and on a Super Bowl run?
For starters, just going back to Saturday real quick, St. Bonaventure Bonnie's men's basketball takes care of Mike Bunt's UB Bulls. So as
I went to Ohio University. You guys take us on this weekend. Stop with the spam.
It's okay. I'm going to continue to spread my propaganda. As everybody anticipated here down in Olean, once again, we go up there and win the Big Four rivalry
show. So that's good to know.
Regardless, back to Bills football. What a big time win. You want to talk about pulling a game out in an unorthodox fashion and just finding a way to win. I think Sunday's game is the definition of that. Definitely not their best football by any stretch. The Bills come out, they start a little bit slow. Bengals get a 2-score lead. James Cook, he fumbles right down by the 1-yard line. And right there and then, game could have been lost. Cincinnati could have went down, punched their ticket into the end zone, and that game could have got away from you. Did not happen. And that is incredible to see, great to see. That's one thing I will say. I'll give this team and Sean McDermott era teams that they are mentally tough. And it's great to see that this team this year still has it, regardless of what anybody has to say about whether or not their talent is the same, whether or not their floor is maybe a little bit lower and their ceiling's a little bit lower. That game could have got away from them. And we're right there, right on the verge of it. It almost seemed when the Bengals are driving. Christian Benford, second week in a row that he finds the end zone. Just what a play that was. Bills get a little lucky on the corner blitz there, but still, that's one hell of a play by Benford. And then the very next series, next passing attempt, Burrow gets picked. Great job by Jordan Phillips. And Epinesa does a nice job catching the football. And the offense, when they needed to come up big most, they did just that. They moved the ball against a defense that is right on the verge of historically being bad. Josh Allen put the team on his back, like we've seen so many times in the past before. The run game looked good. Passing game made some plays when they needed to. And, Jake, to answer your question about can Josh Allen carry the rest of the way, again, I've said this, I'm not going to ride the roller coaster. However, there's a brief exception. If we do win this week, depending on the style, this might install a little bit of faith back into our expectations and how we can get to the possible Super Bowl. But if they're going to ride Josh Allen, I still think that's a very unsustainable way to go about things. You're asking a lot. I get Josh Allen Superman sometimes, but it's pretty hard. I don't care who you are to be Superman time and time again in the biggest of moments, especially come playoff time when you're playing better competition, teams that have been there in the past, maybe not so much this year, right? But teams that there's a reason they've gotten that far. Cincinnati is not one of those teams. Say what you want about their offense. Their defense is historically bad, thus why they're sitting 4-9 right now. And it's pretty much any hope of them taking the division or making the playoffs through the wild card is gone. I don't love the let's put everything on Josh Allen's plate thing, but it's encouraging to see the defense stepping up as of late. I put a tweet out yesterday. I think they're top 5 in yards per game, not points per game, but yards per game and rushing yards per game in the last, I believe, three games, and that's extremely encouraging to see, considering those were some weaknesses for the longest period and longest stretch of the season. I think this team's starting to turn things around defensively. Ever since the bye week, we've seen some improvement. I don't think the defense is where they want it to be. And offensively, again, still inconsistent here and there. But at the end of the day, when they've been very timely, I think, with the plays that they needed to make. And when it comes to plays in January, whether you win or lose, like Bundt, we've talked about this time and time again, that margin of error is that slim. If they can make the plays when they need to on a big third down or staying ahead of the chains, that's going to be the difference that separates a team from a wild card early elimination to a team that wins a conference championship.
Yeah, here I am again. Early December, feeling great. September champs, October, November rut. We're back. That's kind of how I'm feeling right now. I feel great, right? Like, you think this team, they're 7-4 after a very bad loss, and then they go on the road, beat Pittsburgh handily, and then you beat Cincy at home with Joe Burrow as they're fighting for their season to stay alive, and you get the win, and you do it in not dominant fashion, but a game that, the Bills have won year in, year out with Sean McDermott as head coach. They win these football games down the stretch in the regular season. That's what they do. So I'm excited. The only difference about this year compared to previous years is the Chiefs and Ravens have a better probability than not of missing the playoffs, and the Bills aren't probably going to win the division, although there's still an outside chance. So that's really the only change. But I would trade not winning the division for not seeing the Chiefs or Ravens in the playoffs 10 out of 10 times. So I think it's a very weird year. There's a lot of parity. I think Mike's talked about it, and I think it's true. I think a lot of people are probably betting on the Bills right now. They're coming off 2 big wins. They got New England this week. They're favored in that matchup. So it's pretty crazy. Like, if I really do sit back and reflect and take myself out of this year and what's happened, as to how similar these years continue to turn with this team, it's pretty wild to me how similar it is. I know there's definitely some differences, and definitely with the Chiefs and Ravens maybe not even making the playoffs, that's a huge difference. But in terms of this team and what they've done, they continue to make those big runs late and struggle in November, October after having great Septembers. I mean, so I'm looking forward to what they can do on Sunday. I think this Bills team, Josh Allen, what can you say? The play to Khalil Shakir, Joe Brady said some players in the NFL, their best plays won't even be on Allen's mixtape. So that's really speaking of how highly, and I thought it was a great quote, kind of a mic drop moment for Joe Brady. And I thought he called a good game. Allen was great. I thought, he didn't lose a step. So sorry to all of you that believe that. He has not lost a step. He's committed. He committed to the run that game. When they sent pressure, he committed to it, and you saw his legs, and you saw what he could do outside the pocket. He was special. So I think you're seeing Josh Allen be Josh Allen when it matters most. I think the defense, again, comes away with timely turnovers. That's kind of been their MO the last couple of years with Sean McDermott. If they can get the turnovers when needed, they're a fine defense. The problem is their first half defense, I think, is still a major issue. And if you're against a Broncos or Texans team on the road with really good defenses, and you let C.J. Stroud or Bo Nix score 21 on you in the first half, that's going to be a very tough ask for this team. So that's probably my biggest concern right now, is the first half defense and the Bills' inability sometimes offensively and the ups and downs, kind of getting behind with their run-oriented approach. But all in all, really excited, feeling really good. And going into this New England game, I feel confident for the first time. And this is the best I've felt since week 4. So it feels good, man. It feels good. And I'm hoping that they can figure it out, down the stretch here and make a run with hopefully the Chiefs and Ravens not making it.
Yeah, it does feel good. And what feels really good is the thought of possibly not having to go through Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow in order to get to your ultimate goal, and then having possibly the 1 and 2 seeds be teams that right now in DVOA are ranked 8th and 14th, and then having a team like Houston sneaking up out of nowhere to possibly be a 6 or 7 seed that can upset the 2 seed in the first round or the 1 seed in the divisional round and set up a journey that could possibly be the easiest path the Bills have had to a Super Bowl of the Josh Allen era. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. Doesn't mean they're going to take advantage of it. but it's all setting up for the Bills. And if you go based on the probabilities, it's the most likely scenarios to happen right now. It is falling into the Bills' hands. And we're going to talk about this later on about how this is all shaping up. But first off, the Cincinnati game. These are my thoughts. The defense got carved up. The third down defense was atrocious. We're still dealing with the same problems of them not being able to figure out these better offenses in the league, which is frustrating because Joe Burrow's been covering up the Bills the same way for years now. But to the Bills' defensive credit, when it came time to make big plays, they made big plays. Christian Benford getting a pick six in that moment is not something the Bills would have had against Joe Burrow 3 years ago. And then Epineza following it up after the tip by Jordan Phillips, another massive play. So it's one of those where I've always kind of said in the past, you don't need a dominant defense to win games when you have Josh Allen. You need a situational defense that steps up when the moment is at its best. And that's what they did on Sunday. And can you expect this defense to do that on a consistent basis? No. But here's the thing. Joey Bosa wasn't playing on Sunday. Ed Oliver is out for the rest of the regular season. If Bosa is healthy come playoff time and Ed Oliver returns, which he's expected to be right in that time frame, this defense is going to look a lot better in the defensive line. And there's going to be some hope that they can generate more pressure and maybe help out a little bit more. And I want to talk a little bit about the offense too, because the national narrative lately is, well, look out for the Bills with no Mahomes, no Lamar Jackson, and no Joe Burrow. But the other national narrative is that Josh Allen has to be Superman for this team to make a run. And I ask all these people that say that, have you not watched the Buffalo Bills the entire season? They have the number one ranked rushing attack in the NFL. How did they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers? It was not Josh Allen being Superman. It was them running for nearly 250 yards on the ground with the same play over and over and over and over again. This is the most encouraging thing that I saw because I had my questions at times this year of, can Josh Allen be Superman with this lack of receivers? And you know what? We kind of came up with an answer. The Bills still can have Josh Allen go off. But on days that he can't go off, you have a good enough running attack to still beat teams. And you want to know something else? Everybody talks about the Bills receivers and how they're not good enough. And I do agree. The Bills receivers aren't good enough. But it is time to give some goddamn credit to the Bills tight ends. And the amount of people overlooking this group is insane. This is one of the best tight end groups in the NFL, top to bottom. And they do not get enough love. When Dalton Kincaid was healthy, he was pacing well over 900 yards, and he could have been a double-digit touchdown guy if he was healthy the entire season. Jackson Hawes, we know how good of a blocker he is. He's essentially an extra offensive lineman on the field. But he does get involved in the passing game at times. He does have multiple touchdowns this year. And I know he's not worth his contract, but holy shit, Dawson Knox showed he can still play some football. I mean, you're talking about a guy that had nearly 100 yards receiving, was involved in every facet of the pass game. This should be a very encouraging. The Bills tight ends last year, I think, combined for 70 catches for a little over 700 yards. This year, they already have 70 catches for like 954 yards and 8 or 9 touchdowns. The Bills tight ends have been great. They block well. They've been involved in the receiving game. If the Bills can run the ball effectively, Josh Allen limit his turnovers, include the tight ends, and maybe get any bit of help from the receivers, this offense has a chance to be pretty good. And the thing we got to consider right now with this Bills team is the path. You're going up against a bunch of other teams that haven't been there, haven't done it. And we're going to talk about the odds of that later on. But I'm very encouraged. And even though the division is likely out of reach, we're going to have a really good test this week against New England to see where this Bills team, where they stack up on the road against one of the best teams right now in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a great point here. The Haas TD would not have happened. We played 6-0 lineman. He's been a steal in the 5th round, an incredible blocker. And I think that it's a great point about the tight ends. And it's been a hard thing for me to try to, and a lot of fans to try to wrap your head around with this bottom tier wide receiver unit. But they are when Kincaid is out there, one of the best tight end groups in the NFL, just collectively. And it was funny. I was listening to some pregame stuff on Sunday. It's just like, I think it was on GR. I think they were talking about it. It was like Dawson Knox. Like, no one's expecting this to be the Dawson Knox game, right? And then it was the Dawson Knox game all of a sudden. If he still has that ability to go and do that, and mind you, it was against the Bengals, who are the worst team defending tight end in the NFL. But kudos to Brady and the offense for designing a plan to unleash Knox in that position and utilize him in a matchup like that. It just goes to show that this Bills team can attack you in so many different ways. But it's not, people I think are still stuck in the fact, and I think the Chiefs are, the reason the Chiefs are looking like they are is they were a little bit behind this trend of where offenses were 5 years ago when the Bills truly started this run and where they're at now. And having dominant rushing attack while you have Josh Allen with his ability to be able to take over games like the way he did on Sunday and like he's done multiple times this year, makes you a dynamic offense, even if it doesn't look like what dynamic offenses have that we were used to in the past couple years. And the test, it is going to be a test on Sunday with New England, but I feel like the Bills are favored right now. All the pressure is on that team right now in New England to kind of deliver and prove themselves, where the national narrative is that the Bills are the battle-tested team and that they're the team that nobody wants to see, and why not the Bills, and how Josh Allen has played and the outdueling of Joe Burrow. But you mentioned the turnovers as much as anything else. Allen didn't have a turnover. Obviously, it was the Cook fumble in the end zone, which is a killer in almost every other game where that happens. But it's a game where the Bills win the turnover battle. The defense gets a couple big plays. Christian Benford makes one of the most incredible interceptions you'll ever see. Jordan Phillips, of all people, deflecting a Joe Burrow pass on the next offensive play for the Bengals that Ajay Epineza intercepts. Like, when this team, I don't hate to bring it up. I love to bring it up because everybody hates the complimentary football term. But when you have just a little bit of complimentary football, and that means, as we talked about, Mike, I think a lot this year, and I'm switching sides to the defense a little bit here, because you guys made some great points about the offense and where they're at. In that second half specifically, and a lot on third downs in that game, introducing more variance to what they're doing, introducing the fact that, hey, Burrow might hit us, we might send a blitz here and Burrow might beat us on it, but we might be able to make a play to do something. And Benford makes it happen a couple different times in this game. They are understanding who they are at the right time, and it's what they've done since this team became one of the elite teams in the league. I kept harping on the 18-3, now 19-3 in December stat, because I think it's telling to what this team looks at the regular season like, and you want your team to be, you want to have your identity in December and figure out what you are and be able to deploy that. And I think that's what Sunday showed. It was the Bills at their best all around. Now defensively, is that going to be enough? I don't know. But everything that we saw offensively from this team is a lot of the things we've been asking for all year from them. Letting Josh Allen use his legs, letting him get out and scramble to make plays. The play action pass being an effective part of the game plan. It was a kind of morphing everything that we've wanted them to do offensively into this one game. And I hate to I'm not going to do it where it's just like, maybe they were just waiting to unleash all this, because I don't think that was purely the case. But it's getting back to what works well. And I think that that's the credit we have to give to a team that's been there before, knows their personnel, and has a quarterback with that ability, is that it's easier to kind of get back into stuff that is going to work and how to attack these teams when you've done it together a couple years in a row and have that confidence in your own group. So I'm very encouraged along with you guys. And it's as much about the state of the AFC as anything else too. We'll get into this New England matchup a little bit. Carson, where are you feeling as we head into this New England game? Like, just not necessarily like a breakdown of New England, but just you've seen both teams all year long. We saw the one matchup already this year. Like, does it feel it's a 1.5 point spread? Does it feel that close? Do you think the Bills would be favored more? Do you think that New England should be favored? Like, what's your vibes going into this game?
I think with the lines, probably Bundt's better to answer that, but you have New England at home, so thus the benefit goes to New England, the home team. You look at the Bills, though, and their track record, and you factor in all the advanced analytics with DVOA, EPA, all that stuff, and the majority of those come out leaning towards the Bills, especially with how they've played lately, too. So they're battle-tested. The Bills are battle-tested. New England's still just emerging as a team that maybe hasn't proven it in years past, right? I mean, they were last, I believe, last year in the AFC East. It was just horrid. So with them, nobody really saw this one coming. I still think they still have things to prove, especially with the schedule that the generous schedule that they've faced off against. I think that's kind of the main narrative. And I think this game is a huge narrative test for both teams. If you're New England, well, hey, here you go. This is your chance to kind of put the cherry on top of the cake here. If you're going to win the AFC East against a proven Bills team who you've beat once, but if you can beat them twice, I think that's more of a statement. And here you are, if you're the Bills, yeah, you've played well lately. You had a good history, but we still have a little doubt about you. You've lost to a collection of interesting quarterbacks, I'd say is probably the appropriate way to phrase that. Michael Penix, Tua, Davis Mills, but you've also beaten some tough teams. So, and if you have any chance, if you're the Bills, on taking back the division, here you go. This is your chance. The team that's ahead of you, they have a game or two in hand on you. This is your chance to get yourself back in and open that door up a little bit wider. Get yourself back in it. While also saying, hey, we're here to play. We beat a tough team in New England. We're legit again this year. So I think the line -1.5 is probably fine. I don't know. I think that's probably fair. The Bills, I think, are probably universally maybe slight favorites in this game, and how things have been trending as of late. And the Bills are starting to play some good football with Cincy and the dominant win over Pittsburgh. But I really could see this game going any other way. I think if the Bills do come out with this one, me and AJ were just talking about it, I think I'm back on the train. I think, I talk about the roller coaster all the time, but if they are able to beat a New England team who's sitting very pretty right now, who've shown that, hey, they're a timely football team. They don't really turn the football over, and they're good with the turnover margin in a majority of their games. Their quarterback is arguably an MVP candidate this year. Their head coach, Mike Vrabel, might be coach of the year. Like, everything seems to be going right. They have opposing kickers looking like me on the golf course, missing entirely. It's just, it's been that type of year for New England. So if the Bills can pull this one off, I'm not going to say like I'm jumping back on the train, because I don't really feel I ever left it. Because the Bills are just kind of the Bills, I think, at this point. It's their identity. We know that they're going to run the football. They know there's some question marks regarding their passing game along with their defense, and they are who they are. You're not just going to magically change. So if they win, I do think this is a great opportunity for a prove-it type of game, I think, for both teams. And it's a great opportunity if you're the coaching staffs. You're going to be preaching to both teams, hey, like this is our week to either run away with it or get ourselves back in the division race. And you look at a team, this is in New England, it's kind of a weird matchup, right? Defensively, they have the third-ranked rushing defense in the league. Bills are number one. Something's got to give there, right? But if you look at New England's passing offense, they have the 21st-ranked rushing attack in the league. And we all know how the Bills' rushing defense has been over the course of a whole season. They've been better lately. And in the red zone, too. Everything else New England's good at. But in the red zone, offensively, they're 24th. In red zone, defensively, they're 32nd. So that's going to be the difference, I think, in the game. Can the Bills bend but don't break defensively, and can they convert on their opportunities in the red zone and on third down? That right there, I had circled, and I think those are your two major keys to the game if you're the Bills.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this game. I think it is a big narrative game for both teams. I think, there's been a lot of parity in the AFC this year. I think the Bills have been part of that parity. I think they've been right in the middle of it because we don't really know or haven't really known what they are. And I think this game can kind of put a statement that they're not a parity team anymore. Like they're kind of legit, right? Like this is a team that can make a run from the wild card spot. Something that hasn't been done since Tampa a few years ago. So I think it's a narrative game. You know what the Patriots do. The Bills know what the Patriots do. The Patriots know what the Bills do. It's everything you want, right? Like this is the new and up and coming quarterback, Drake May, with the first year head coach and Mike Vrabel, who's had success against Allen his entire career, whether it's been in Tennessee and now in New England, versus the 9-year head coach that hasn't won a Super Bowl, that's trying to get there with a defense that has looked at times deflated, but also at times has stepped up, in an offense that at times the ceiling's falling and everyone's calling for Joe Brady's head and the coaching staff's head, but they've still averaged, they're one of the best offenses in the league still. So it's really interesting how the season has played out, and I think this is just the game you live for. A 9-4 Bills team against an 11-2 Pats team coming off a bye. I think that benefits the Pats. In terms of the line, Mike's going to say one thing. I'll go the opposite way in how you could look at it. I think it is interesting because I do think a lot of the public money is going to be on Buffalo. A lot of it. So I think that
Not so far.
Oh, really? Oh,
Not
we'll
so
see.
far.
Well, that's my prediction. But I think a lot of public money is going to be on Buffalo. Maybe it's not. Maybe Bundt can correct me on that, and maybe he's going to in a few seconds here. But I think the line is interesting. I believe that the Pats – I don't know. Maybe I just look at through a Bills lens, but I think that the narrative around the Pats is they're a team that's not really proven, and they have a weak schedule, and they're not going to sweep a Bills team with Josh Allen in his prime, with a second-year quarterback and a first-year head coach. So that's kind of what my narrative is. Maybe not it's a national narrative, but that's my narrative and how I think it plays out. I got to leave here in about 15 minutes, so I won't give my prediction just yet, but it's going to be a great game, and I'm really looking forward to a challenge for the Bills, and this is probably the game I'll get most up for. Like I'll be waking up Sunday morning feeling like this is what I've waited for all year. This is it. Like this is what I've waited for. So I'm pumped.
So I'll talk about the lines on Polymarket Sports, who just so happens to sponsor Trainwreck Sports and myself individually. So shout out Polymarket Sports. Right now, the money line is 50-50. On Polymarket Sports. And if you go to the spread, 52% of the money is on New England. So this is what I said going in. I spoke to you Sunday night, AJ, about this. And this is where knowing narratives makes you money in Vegas. Not knowing narratives loses you money in Vegas. In Buffalo, we think Josh Allen, we think about all the respect he gets and where people think about this team. What we have to understand right now, and this is why I cautioned you guys early in the season about Kansas City not winning the AFC West and how they possibly, if crazy things happen, could miss the playoffs. I cautioned you. I didn't have the balls to predict it because I don't follow this stuff. But I told AJ, think about the narratives. The Patriots have won 10 games in a row. They haven't lost a game since September? They have a second-year quarterback in the MVP race that 90% of their fan base says they wouldn't trade for Josh Allen, who is the best player in the NFL right now. The Patriots are about to win the division, most likely.
Would you trade Drake May for Josh Allen right now?
That's a tough
one.
That's a tough one. We'll do that a different day, but maybe later in the show when you're not on.
He won't say yes.
But the narrative around the Patriots nationally right now is that this is a team that's competing for a Super Bowl. That's gonna likely get the 1 or 2 seed and is gonna probably make a run in the playoffs. And people respect Mike Vrabel. They think he's a good head coach. They like Drake May. They like what their offense is doing. There's some people that are hesitant, but this is another part that plays a factor into it. Boston is a much bigger market than Buffalo. So there's always bias in these betting markets. If Boston is 5 times the population of Buffalo, and you assume that they have 5 times as many people betting as people in Buffalo, that's going to be 5 times as many biased people putting their money on the Patriots versus people putting on their money on the Bills in Buffalo. nationally, people might like Josh Allen more. They might go with the Bills. But even I was watching FS1 the other day to kind of get a feeling. Nick Wright, obviously, he thinks highly of the Bills right now. He respects them because even though the Bills have lost all these games, he knows what their ceiling is and how much fear they've put into the Chiefs in recent years. But you hear Kevin Wilde speak, who's obviously a Patriots fan, a Boston sports guy, and he's talking about Josh Allen being Superman is not sustainable. They can't do it for this many games. And you have Coach Mangini saying the same thing afterwards. There's a lot of people that don't think Josh can be Superman week to week to week. So Josh Allen just had a Superman performance. Can he do it 2 weeks in a row? Normally, Vegas odds say, no, you're not going to do it 2 weeks in a row. So the thought I really got when I saw the line at -1.5 is this. Vegas wants people to put the money on New England. You're talking about an 11-2 team that's home, that's an underdog. You know how many times that's happened in the history of the NFL? Not much. This is a rarity. Like, all statistical things say, even if you think the Bills are the 10th DVOA team and the Patriots are the 14th or 13th DVOA team, the 11-2 team should be the favorite 95% of the time in these games. And people are going to bet according to that. So this is a true 50-50 game. I could see the Bills winning. I could see the Bills losing. But don't kid yourself. This is not one of those, the Bills are 1.5 point favorites. You expect it to fade. Like, it's one thing when the Bills are playing a team like Atlanta and they're a 3-point favorite or 3.5 point favorite on the road. That's a fade concern because 75% of the money is going to be on the Bills. Everybody's putting their money on the Bills. This ain't one of those situations. When the money is 50-50, they're trying to get people on New England, which means they like their data points that point to the Bills winning this game.
Like,
so,
can I ask a question? If you believe if you think the narratives of what you just said, like you brought up some examples about Nick Wright and Kevin Wilde and what fans think and Vrabel being a respected coach, and then why are the Bills favored to win the Super Bowl in the AFC if the narrative is
all the odds are the same though? Like, you're not talking about discrepancy. You're not talking about
the Bills are plus 850, New England's plus 1,000. That's
minimal. That's minimal in betting worlds. Like, plus 850 still says you have a very little chance of winning the Super Bowl. Like, if you sign plus 1,000 or stuff like that into percentages, like, the Bills have less than a 10% chance of winning the Super Bowl right now. It's just saying that New England also has less than a 10% chance of winning the Super Bowl right now. The Bills' chances of winning the AFC are the same as the Broncos and New England. And why that should be really telling to people right now is that the Broncos and New England are competing for a 1 seed, while the Bills are likely to be the 5 seed. So Vegas is telling you right now that a team that has to likely win 3 games on the road.
So what are the narratives then, though, about the Bills then, if that's the case?
See, this is the thing. We got to remember that narratives vary across the country. There's a lot of people that respect the hell out of Josh Allen and say that Josh Allen could carry them to a Super Bowl. But there's also a lot of people across the country that think Josh Allen's overrated, that he's not that great because he's never beaten the Chiefs in a big moment, and that the Bills are going to choke because that's what they do. The point is, it is not common for wildcard teams to enter the playoffs as the favorite to win their conference. That is in itself a telling thing. It's not saying the Bills are going to do it, but they're saying they think there's just as much of a chance that the Patriots or Broncos choke as there is the Bills getting hot and figuring it out. Nobody's ever claiming anything is set in stone. Plus 390, plus 400 to win a conference is not saying you're winning it. Like like the Sabres tonight are plus 170 against the Edmonton Oilers, and I give them a 20% chance of winning this game. So if the Bills are plus 380 to win the AFC, and I'm saying the Sabres have almost a 1 in 5 chance of beating the Oilers, what am I saying about the Bills' chance of winning the AFC? The point of it is Vegas is essentially acknowledging to us They don't know either. The betting market doesn't have a read on the AFC. And when you're a team like the Bills that has the most experienced, most talented player in your conference entering the playoffs at the most important position in the sport, that should instill confidence in you that you have an opportunity. It doesn't mean you're going to take advantage of that opportunity, but it's saying almost as much, we don't know if Denver and New England are ready for this challenge.
To add on to it, just for the odds perspective too, I think it is as much of the Bills are an incredibly public team and have been for a couple years, and that if they set those odds too much lower than New England and Denver, that they're going to get hammered on it. Yeah, yes. Because then it's like, oh, the Bills are plus 1,500, or Polymarket, they're at 6% instead of 9% up there with New England and Denver. Well, then I'm going to hammer that because it's a better payout, and I got Josh Allen, and then
I got one thing,
the Bills, especially going into this game, because this game will flip the odds one way or the other. If the Bills beat New England on Sunday, like I imagine that they're getting a 2-3% boost.
They will be the AFC favorite if they beat New England. And I got one thing to add. Jake, that's a really good point. And I love that you brought that up because it is about basically insurance, and it's Vegas's way of hedging. I don't know, AJ, you and I have talked about this all season. Even when the Chiefs were 5-5, they were the AFC favorites. They were one of the top 4 teams in Super Bowl odds. And people are like, well, why is that? And I told you the whole time, this Chiefs team stinks. But I'd still pick them to win the Super Bowl because I think when they're at their best, they can be the best team in the AFC. The Chiefs right now are at 1% to win the Super Bowl. And in the AFC, they are all the way down to 4%. Now, why are they at 1% and 4% now, while last week they still had realistic odds of winning it all? Well, the major difference is up until last week, it was still very realistic to think the Chiefs could make the playoffs. And if they made the playoffs, even if they were a 7 seed, the thought is if you get the playoff Chiefs to show up, they have what it takes to win a Super Bowl. But now that their odds are down under 10% just to make the playoffs, and they're 1 Chargers win and a Texans win away from being eliminated, they're down to 1% because the numbers are basically saying it is now safe now to give up on them because it will take the biggest miracle in the world just for them to make the playoffs. So Vegas, they were hedging the whole time. And then the moment that it became almost statistically impossible for them, they give up. And then all that hedging and insurance went away. So Vegas has told you now, based on their lines, Kansas City is out. Their season is over. And that is what we have to realize is now happening with the Bills to a degree. They're never going to have the Bills as like 6, 7, 8 somewhere in that area because stop. Because the Bills have Josh Allen. But the thought is this. If Josh Allen gets hot, or if he plays well and the Bills run the ball well, that the Bills have every chance of winning the AFC. It's the same reason why Baltimore, when they were 1-5, were still the favorites to win the AFC North. Because the thought is, okay, they have Lamar Jackson. They'll get hot. They'll figure it out. They'll win some games, and Pittsburgh will collapse. The issue with that is that Vegas didn't account for Lamar Jackson being made of glass and playing the last half of the season injured and not being able to play quarterback because he's being forced to throw the ball. So it's one of those things with the Bills where I think if they beat New England, public perception is going to start going into the area of the Bills are good enough to beat these teams on the road. And even if they are a 5 seed, they might go to be the favorite. The big area where you're going to see the change is this. If Houston makes the playoffs as a 7 or a 6 seed, not a 6 or a 7 seed, and somehow upsets Denver or New England in the first round, whoever they would face, if they face one of those two, and the Bills get past Pittsburgh, if you have a scenario where the Bills are playing Jacksonville in the divisional round and it's Houston at New England or Houston at Denver. And that moment in time, the Bills AFC odds will probably skyrocket to around 45%, like 40 to 45%, because the thought at that moment will be they're going to get past Jacksonville and they might host Houston, or they're going to beat Denver or something like that. But they have to play it safe until there's a reason not to play it safe.
All right, listeners, I'm about to pop out of here. So I'll make my prediction. Bills, Patriots. Thanks to Mike's wonderful Vegas advice that we had to listen to for the last about 15, 20 minutes. I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills because Mike said the data points for Vegas point to that. They want the money on New England. So I'm going to go in the opposite way, and I'm going to pick the Bills in this one. But seriously, I'm not really I'm just trying to get Mike fired up. I do think the Bills actually do win this game. I think they're the better team as of now. I think they can go into New England. I just don't see them getting swept by a divisional opponent. I don't know if they ever have in the Alan McDermott era, if they've ever been swept by the same opponent in the same season, but I don't think so off the top of my head. So I don't see it happening. The Bills play their best football in December, and give me the Bills 28-21. Bills take care of business, and hey, they'll give themselves maybe a chance at the AFC East if they can get the job done and hope for a New England loss against Baltimore, and then hope for Miami's playing for something, and they can get hot, and they can maybe knock them off down the stretch there. But thanks for having me on. Enjoyed the show today, and have a great week, guys. I appreciate all of the knowledge that's spilled on here. So I'll see you guys next week. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Bills. Thank you, AJ.
And we got to talk about this field. Like, I don't know if you want to go more into New England and what they present. Like, I would like to talk a little bit about May, but we got to talk about this field. Whatever you want to go with. I don't want to keep you guys too long today, but the way this field is breaking down needs to be talked about.
Bundt, I do have to bring this up because I did some playoff machine machinations yesterday, and there is one doomsday scenario that is out there, and you're not going to believe it because we argued about it last week. But if the Pittsburgh Steelers are just beat up on a bat, didn't even really beat up, like the Ravens had every chance to win that game, and Isaiah likely, if he just holds on to the ball in the end zone, who knows what happens there. The Steelers have the Dolphins this week, a game where the Dolphins are playing. They're as hot as anybody right now, battling for their playoff lives.
4 straight.
They have the Lions. They have the Browns. And they have another matchup with the Ravens. There is a scenario where all 3 teams in the AFC North are 8-9. And in that scenario, the winner of the division is the Cincinnati Bengals. And that's the doomsday scenario.
You're talking about like a 1%.
I know, but I'm just saying that it's that I just
the
have
Kansas
to.
City Chiefs have a 10 times higher likelihood of making the playoffs, and we're talking about this.
I'm just saying. No, we don't have to talk about it, but I'm just saying there's one doomsday scenario where the Bills being the 5 seed is
the Bills have a 20%
better
better chance of winning the AFC than they have of Cincinnati making the playoffs in your scenario.
I just needed to put. I went through the machine the other day, and Cincinnati ended up being the team in the AFC North, and I said, "This is horrible. I can't wait to bring it up to Bundt to talk to him about it."
I just want to say this: all of the things that I've said could happen this year, that I've gotten laughed at numerous times by people on this show. Come on, guys! This year, you might as well, outside of picking the Bills games, because I have a horrible track record with that. Anything besides picking the Bills, I'm Nostradamus this year.
Bundstradamus.
Let's be real. You guys thought I was crazy when I said that this wasn't the same Chiefs on September 5th.
Oh my God. We talk about this weekly, Bundt.
I know, but no, what did you guys laugh at me about last week? The Pittsburgh Steelers, guys. The Pittsburgh Steelers, no chance.
AJ laughed at you.
No chance.
And Jake.
I laughed at him a lot. I can't believe Aaron Rodgers had the game. Aaron Rodgers had more passes 20
I
yards down the
told
field
you
than he's had
guys.
in like 10
I
years.
told you guys.
You couldn't have predicted that. You weren't predicted Aaron Rodgers
I
slinging
said
the
it
ball
could
down
happen
the
though.
field.
You guys were like, "It's no chance. He's too old. He can't." He had an effing
I
rushing touchdown.
I still think they're going to lose this week, and then everything opens back up. It's probably week 18. Ravens. I mean, well, I don't know about the Ravens. Honestly, the Lamar thing of it is very scary.
The Ravens are toast right now.
Yeah, they might just be done. And that game, they play. I don't know, where is Baltimore this week? They get Cincy this week, right? And then they have to go to New England, or they host New England on a Sunday night. Like that is.
Let's be real. What is the Steelers' record right now? Are they?
They're 7-6.
7-6. If they just take care of Miami and Cleveland, that gets them to 9. And the Ravens have to play the Bengals on the road. They have to play the Patriots. They have to play the Packers on the road. And then they have to play the Steelers on the road.
Yeah, that's
how are the Ravens doing? How are the Ravens getting to 9 wins?
It's tough. But that's the thing is, I'm not talking about the Ravens anymore. I'm talking about the Bengals.
The Bengals don't have a chance to. They're 4-9.
Bengals, if the Bengals get to 8-9 and the Steelers are at 8-9, the Bengals win that division.
I think this is what's going to happen.
So,
could Miami beat Pittsburgh? They could. But Pittsburgh is almost a lock to beat the Browns. The Browns are tanking. You don't take Shedeur Sanders out of a game for a potential game tying.
My Browns may be winning. Went down the tubes, losing to the
Do
Titans
we know?
at home.
Like, can we honestly call that for what it is? And they will never admit it.
That was brutal.
That's a tank move.
That was embarrassing.
That's a tank move. You took out your quarterback who just had the best game of his career. 4 touchdowns, I think, 3 in the air, 1 on the ground. You took him out because you run a trick play because you're thinking we want to get the number 1 overall pick. You know what? This is why I always bring up narratives, and this is why when like Ajay says stuff like, "Well, the Browns could try; they'll win this pointless game." The narrative right now in Cleveland is that the Browns need to get Francisco Mendoza, and right now the Browns are 3-10. The Titans are 2-11 or whatever it is, and the Giants are 2-11. Well, you know what those two teams don't need right now? A quarterback. The Titans just took Cam Ward. So unless they take a quarterback, top number 1 overall back-to-back years, that's not likely. The Giants just took Jackson Dart. He looks good. Not likely. So the Browns need to stay in that top 3. They need to be there. And if they get in that top 3, what can the Browns do after getting some capital? They can trade up to get Mendoza, because think about the Browns situation. Who's the second best quarterback in this class? Nobody even knows
who comes out. If Dante Moore comes out, I really like Dante Moore. But
yes, but
unknown.
But we don't know. And then here's the problem with the Browns: Deshaun Watson's going to return, and then they're going to have to pay his contract, and that's going to they're going to be paying him like $60 million for like a couple years to come, and probably to be a backup. So the Browns' only hope when you're paying a backup quarterback $60 million is you need to get the best possible rookie quarterback you can get. And I think Mendoza is what they're going to try to make it all work for. And in that situation, it's going to be really shitty for Shedeur Sanders. If fans thought it was awful this year, imagine when he's a 3rd-string quarterback behind a number 1 pick and then a $60 million backup. Like, he won't even be able to get reps in practice at that point. The Browns better just hope they can trade him for something.
Gabriel,
someone will trade him.
And then you got Gabriel too. So the point being, I can't see the Steelers losing to the Browns because it would be detrimental to the Browns. It would self-sabotage them. It's the same reason I don't think the Bills can lose to the Browns. So you look at that, and then you look in, like, honestly, I'm more concerned about the Pittsburgh Steelers down the stretch than I am the Bills, because I know where the Bills are locked in. Let's talk about this, and then we can kind of wrap up with whatever topics you want afterwards. If the AFC playoffs started today, you have what? Denver as the 1 seed, New England as the 2, Jacksonville as the 3, Pittsburgh as the 4, Buffalo as the 5. No, you got
Chargers
as the 5, Buffalo as the 6, and Houston as the 7. The Chargers have a brutal schedule down the stretch.
Yes.
The Chargers are going to lose games. So they're not going to be the 5. The Steelers have to hold on. And then Denver and New England are battling for the 1 seed. Denver has to play Kansas City again. That game may or may not have significance, but they have to play each other. It'll have significance for Denver, but who knows for KC. New England has to play us. They have to play the Ravens and then potentially Miami. If New England loses to us and then they lose to the Ravens, they're going to be in a situation where they will have to beat Miami the last game of the season to win the AFC East. And this is where the crazy part comes in. This Miami team could have tanked if they wanted to. They were out of it. Their playoff odds, even if they keep winning, are extremely slim. Is Miami going to just let New England comfortably win the last week of the regular season for a draft pick? I don't think so. Because if Miami cared about the draft pick, they wouldn't have won the last 4 weeks. So I think it's funny. If the Bills win out, they actually have something like a 42, 43% chance of winning the division. And the talk is it's all over because New England can win the division with the win over Buffalo. But as we've seen, that would be because the Bills would fall to 9-5, the Patriots would be 12-3, and they would have the tiebreaker. It just would be impossible to make up that ground. But if the Bills beat New England and then they beat the Browns, 2 weeks from now, the Bills are 11-4. And if New England loses to the Bills and they lose to the Ravens, they're both 11-4. I don't even know if it matters what the Bills do against Philadelphia because it's not a common opponent. I need to see what the common opponent tiebreaker is. But I got to see if they're tied at 12-5, who gets it if they split and New England loses to Miami. I don't know what happens there. But there's a scenario where the Bills could still win the AFC East. I wouldn't bet on it. But let's just say New England or Denver get the 1 and 2. Jacksonville plays the Tennessee Titans. They play the Colts, and I think they play another weak team. Jacksonville's going to probably win the AFC South. And if Pittsburgh is your AFC North, let's say Bills get the 5 seed, most likely scenario. LA gets the 6 or 7, and Houston gets the other one. Houston, I believe, plays the Chargers down the stretch. So that's going to probably determine who gets the 6 versus the 7. But let's think about a first-round scenario. Houston's playing the Denver Broncos on the road. Who are you picking?
I'm picking Houston.
I think I'm going Houston too.
Houston plays New England in the first round. Who are you picking?
Probably Houston.
Well, that is where the craziness begins. Because historically, since they've started the 7 seeds have been like play-in teams, like James Madison and Tulane, while the higher seeds have been like the Chiefs and the Ravens and the Bills and teams like that. So they've been lopsided. But DVOA thinks Houston is just as good as Denver. DVOA thinks that Houston is better than the Patriots. So what happens in the NFL after the first round? They reseed. It's low versus high. So Houston, say they're the 7th seed, and they beat the Broncos in the first round, or they beat New England. Next round, who are they playing? The other top seed. And here you are, Buffalo. You're playing possibly Aaron Rodgers, who can't even move in the first round. And then your second round opponent is likely the Jacksonville Jaguars. You're telling me, and yes, Denver can beat Houston. The Patriots can beat Houston. If that happens, the Bills are probably going on the road to Denver and New England. But the point being, it's entirely possible the Bills' path could be Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, Houston, or Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, like LA. There's another crazy scenario where, say Houston's the 7th seed, they beat Denver. Chargers are the 6th seed. They beat Jacksonville. You're hosting the Chargers in the second round while Houston goes to play the 1 seed.
Yep.
You could be playing to host Houston in the AFC Championship. And it's all because the AFC doesn't have their traditional powers. And because the traditional powers are out of it, there's more variables that come into play. Even if you acknowledge, okay, say Houston and the Chargers lose. The Bills win their first round game. They beat Pittsburgh, and they're the highest seed remaining. Divisional round at New England or divisional round at Denver, does that sound like Bills at Kansas City to you? Does that sound like Bills at home versus Baltimore to you? It doesn't.
Nope.
Because we all know, even when the Bills played mediocre against New England earlier this year, they probably should have won the game. So the fact of it is this. What is Denver's ceiling offensively? 30 points and against the Bills' poor defense. But the Bills have every ability to put up points against Denver. If the Bills score against Denver, Denver shouldn't be able to keep up. New England, Drake May can make special plays, but can he dominate for an entire 4 quarters? Maybe. But
as my brother had pointed out on Sunday, Drake May in the biggest games of his career so far that we've seen has played very poorly in college.
That's the point.
Doesn't mean it'll relate, but
he doesn't have the playoff experience. Bo Nix has 1 career playoff game. Trevor Lawrence, I believe, has 1 career playoff game.
And it was horrible. It was a mess.
Aaron Rodgers has the playoff experience, but he's ancient right now. So what I'm trying to say is this, and it really all comes down to Pittsburgh being the 4 seed, because if Lamar gets healthy and then gets them into the playoffs as a 4, Baltimore would be a scary team in that scenario. The point of all of this is a lot of people want to act like the 3 games on the road is more challenging than the last 4 or 5 years of winning the division and having home playoff games. I would argue matchups matter more than home field advantage when it comes to playoff football. And everybody, I've said this how many times on the show? I'm going to do it again with my hand motions. The Bills the last several years have been here, and Kansas City has been here. So even when the Bills are great, their great hasn't been good enough. And that is mistakenly put in the mindset of fans that when the Bills are here, they can't win a Super Bowl. But what if I told you the rest of the AFC was right here? What if I told you the rest of the top teams in the AFC are here, but the Bills that they bring their ceiling can still play here? So it is shaping up to where they have every opportunity of going to the Super Bowl this year. And the only reason we are not having more people talk about it is because we know how inconsistent and how poor this defense is and how crappy our weapons are. And in spite of how bad our defense is, in spite of how poor our receivers are, the Bills are 9-4 and likely to finish at 11-6 or 12-5. So even with everything as bad as it's gone this year, they're still on pace for a hell of a season. And I think what we need to recognize as fans is the Bills at their worst are still better than 85% of the NFL at their best. And this is the draw that we've been waiting for a long time. We've always said Kansas City gets the lucky draws most of the times. Kansas City doesn't normally have to go through both Baltimore and Buffalo. The one year they did. But most of the time, Kansas City's going through a Houston, or they're going through a Pittsburgh, or they're going through these shitty teams. This is our chance.
So,
do not waste it.
Bundt, even if we have the luck of the draw and we still come up short, what happens then?
That's when you have to start talking about changes.
There you go.
I would make the argument right now that regardless of what happens this season, they might want to talk about changes. Even if they won a Super Bowl, I think it might be time to discuss changes. Because the biggest thing that happens is when you win, it gives people more time because everybody's happy.
I'm a little worried about that, completely.
And they feel like they have to reward people. I think the writing is on the wall for the Bills defense. It's clearly not what they need to get things done against the elite quarterbacks in the NFL. But this is where the pathway clears for them. They're not going to be playing the elite quarterbacks of the AFC in the playoffs. And this is what's always interesting and why I talk about narratives. The narratives have always been the Bills' defense stinks in the playoffs. The reality is the Bills' defense stinks against Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow in the playoffs. But when they're playing anybody besides those two guys, they allow around the same amount of points a game they always allow. Yeah. So this year in the playoffs, if they go against Pittsburgh and they hold them to 17 points, and then they play Jacksonville and they hold them to 20 points, and then they play Houston, they hold them to 14 points at home. I don't want people to be like, wow, the Bills' playoff defense suddenly showed up. They figured a few things out. No, they didn't figure anything out. They didn't go up against playoff Mahomes. They didn't go up against Joe Burrow. And this is why I've always said the narrative for the last 5 years needs to be the Bills have had one of the special runs in their history, but there was just a team that was a little bit more special than them that destroyed them. In Bills fans, I don't think they've wanted to acknowledge that, because to acknowledge that is basically saying that you can't do anything internally to get past your arch nemesis. And then people view that as a defeatist attitude, and they don't like acknowledging stuff like that. My counter to that is, and yes, it happened once, so technically the Cavs capitalized once. My counter to that would be, how did the Cavs fare against Golden State in 4 NBA finals? They needed the biggest miracle in the history of the NBA finals to come back from a 3-1 deficit and have LeBron James and Kyrie Irving pull off the most amazing performance that we maybe ever will see in a Game 7 to win one. And if they didn't win, and yes, you could say the Bills could do that against KC, and the Bills almost did against KC. They had the 13 seconds, and they still blew it. But the point of it being, there was nothing LeBron and Kyrie could do about Golden State for the most part. They got lucky once, but Golden State was just a level above them. And the Cavs had the best player maybe in the history of the NBA at that point. Peak prime LeBron up there with Jordan as the best player of all time. But they couldn't do anything. So my argument with the Bills with Allen is they just didn't have that answer. They didn't have it. But when you don't have to go through it, know it opens the door when Jordan's not playing in the NBA? The Houston Rockets win back-to-back titles.
Yep.
Right now, Michael Jordan ain't playing in the AFC playoffs this year.
And as disappointing as it's been in those losses to Kansas City specifically, it's a 6-point loss, it's a 3-point loss, it's a 3-point loss. So it's a team that has literally played them as well as anybody else outside of the Eagles stomping them in the Super Bowl last year, Kansas City, that is, where the Bills were right there. And we talked about it. We've talked about it all year, Mike. We talked about it all offseason. It's the little moments that the team didn't capitalize on in those games that cost them as much as anything else too. So it's a team that played at that level where they're at. If you would have last year, if I would have told you the Bills are down 3 and have the ball at the end of the game with a chance to win in KC in the championship game, we all would have taken it. It didn't work out, but everybody would have taken that scenario in what they were at in Arrowhead last year. And I think that's what's driven me nuts about the narrative coming into the year as much as anything else. Because I'm like, guys, I know that team got smoked in the Super Bowl anyways, Kansas City, but that game was right there for the taking. It was a failure, but it's not like it wasn't the AFC Championship in 2020 where they didn't belong on the field with that team. They were right there, and you want your star quarterback with the ball with a chance to win at the end of a game. You'll take that anytime. So I think that I think it's fair to say, hey, this is the path. This is what it looks like, and there's a great reason to believe that the Bills should be favored in this scenario, that have the narratives in their side in this scenario because of that experience, because of how close they've been in years past. And we go to that. I get really mad about that Bengals game too. Everybody flipping out about the defense in that game in the playoffs because the offense scored 10 points. The offense was horrible in that game. So
people don't want to ever. This is the tough part. Josh Allen is probably the best quarterback in the NFL right now. I'd say it's really not much of a discussion. But especially in a small market like Buffalo, where we haven't won a title, our biggest fear is pissing off the star athlete. And we struggle to say stuff that can sometimes be critical of a person like that. Like Josh Allen was really bad in that Bengals playoff loss. And he was a reason why they lost the game. Now, it's easy to not point it on him because it looked like the Bills weren't going to get a stop for the life of them in that contest. But here's the thing. Like, if Burrow is going off, you need your quarterback to go toe-to-toe. And the Bills
basically what we saw on Sunday.
Yes.
That's what they needed from them. Yeah.
And this is the thing. It sounds so crazy. I'm going to say this because I called for Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott to be fired after a loss against Houston. But I truly believe this Bills team might be constructed in a way that is more conducive to winning in the playoffs. I look at it, and this team can run against almost anybody. We've seen them against Pittsburgh. Run the same play over and over and over and over again, and Pittsburgh couldn't stop it. And I know this ain't the greatest Pittsburgh defense we've ever seen, but you know what it reminded me of? When they played the Dallas Cowboys, who had Micah Parsons, how did they neutralize him? They just ran at him the whole time.
Yep.
TJ Watt did nothing against the Bills. His only pressure was the one time he was unblocked. And I look at it and I think, well, what can the Bills do if Josh Allen has maybe not his best performance? They can go to the ground, and that can be what eases him into a game 100%. And gets him into his comfort zone. We had a nice talk in the chat, or well, a brief talk in the chat, where I think it was Benjamin Solak shared a tweet about how the Chiefs receivers really haven't been this good this year. And there was another tweet from him that said, what's the difference between the Eagles this year and the Eagles last year? And it was last year they took the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hands and they ran it a lot and they prevented turnovers. And that's why they won, because they ran the ball really effectively. He wasn't throwing interceptions. This year they're throwing it and he's turning the ball over more and they're losing. And it kind of made me think, like, what's that similar to? Similar in a way to the Bills. A lot of interceptions led them to run the ball more, started protecting it more, won a lot more games, got as far as they've got in the playoffs. And then they felt like they had to go away from it because teams started defending the run a little bit more. And then interceptions start happening, some more mistakes happen. You start losing some games. The difference between the Eagles and the Bills is I have a lot more faith in Josh Allen than I do in Jalen Hurts. Now, Jalen Hurts has a way more talented roster surrounding him. So when Hurts doesn't carry the team can carry him, while Josh Allen oftentimes doesn't have the surrounding cast to really carry the team. He needs the Bills to run the ball effectively, and he needs the defense to make a turnover or two like they did on Sunday. But this is the thing that I think is interesting. We said in the chat, you need to find the right balance to where you don't turn over the ball, but you don't become so simplistic that you neuter your own offense. And this is why I believe running the ball is such a necessity to winning games in the playoffs and making playoff runs. It's just statistically proven. The more you throw the ball, the highly likelihood you have of turning the ball over and eventually having an interception or a mistake, just because you have a chance of getting pressured, sacked, fumble, rush a throw, be off target, something like that. But when you're running the ball really good, you have a lower chance of turning it over because you're protecting it. And yes, James Cook has had a couple tough fumbles recently, but statistically, you have a lower chance of turning the ball over. What the Bills need to find in the playoffs is what is their magic number that they need to be at. Because the one thing that Josh Allen hasn't had in the past is if the Bills were up 10 points where they could just run the ball for like a quarter straight and just end the game. And they've had it at times, but a lot of times he's been part of that run game. With Cook now, they have a lot more where he doesn't always have to do it himself. But you think about it like this. If you know early on you can run the ball and a team is going to have to account for that, that can open things up for the passing game when you're ready to open it up. I've seen the way the Bills have attacked teams this year. They have won games on the ground. They won a game just now by attacking tight ends. They started involving Josh Moore in the run game. The receiving room is obviously a liability, but if they can find a way to consistently run when it matters the most, I think it's going to keep teams on edge. Now, it's about execution against teams like the Patriots with the run game when it matters. If they can't run it against New England when it matters and New England forces Josh to throw it, then things get a little bit more tricky. But I think having an attack like James Cook is a weapon that the Bills have not had. And when everybody says Superman, I don't know if they need Josh Allen to be Superman every game in the playoffs to make
they
a
don't. Run. That's the only concern I have, though, is when the run game has shown signs of struggling for a variety of reasons, whether that is the Bills maybe get down a little bit early and they have to go to the passing game, or, for example, Houston had a little bit of a hard time moving people consistently. You had Cook with the long run. Other than that, though, I thought they bottled him up to a certain extent, contained him, I'd say is the right word. And then you kind of get a little pass happier. When they got down against Atlanta, they had to throw with 3 healthy wide receivers. So I agree, though. Like, people do talk about Allen being Superman a lot more than they probably should. When you do have the number 1 rushing attack, it certainly helps when you have players around you that can step up when you can turn and hand the football off. And that does a lot of different things. That can, open your play action game up a little bit more. Pass rushers slow down a little bit because, you're taught most times not to rush upfield, especially against a good rushing attack. The run game or the line's feeling more confident as run games you go forward instead of pass games where you go backwards in pass sets. A good run game does a lot of different things for you. You can chew a clock against a good offense. I think a vital run game is extremely important. The Bills have had that these past few years, but not to this extent where they've just dominated for a majority of these games up front and they move bodies. And I think it's not talked about enough. The starting offensive line has been the same for the last 2 years. The chemistry these guys have. Talk about Dion in the post game. He said something along the lines when Allen had that long rushing touchdown. David Edwards, what a guy, what a pickup he's been. A few years ago, he submerged himself into a starting offensive line role. He's done a great job. The communication with those guys has been excellent, and the way they work together has been tremendous as well. Shout out Aaron Cromer. He's done a great job with that group. And that takes the Superman aspect out of Josh Allen most times, and they don't need him to be Superman. But, the occasional time where they do, it's just sometimes that can get a little scary. And I do see where a lot of fans are coming from because there's not a ton of help outside of the tight end room. The wide receivers, they need to be better. I think everybody agrees with that. And
do you think Josh Allen needs to be Superman going up against teams like the New England Patriots, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Denver?
New England maybe, because their run defense has been dominant.
I'll rephrase it. When I say Superman, I'm not saying – okay. So when I think of Superman, I think of what he did against Cincinnati.
Yep, I agree.
Where he goes off and he literally needs to outduel Joe Burrow to win a game. I am not saying like Josh Allen is going to make freak plays,
of course,
every single game.
He's going to get his.
You think let's look at a couple of the losses this year. The game against Houston. Josh Allen didn't need to be Superman to beat Houston. He just needed the offensive line to give him a teeny bit more time and maybe get rid of the ball a little bit earlier. So, the Bills
and their kicker hit an extra point.
The Bills played as bad as they could have played against. What?
The extra point
and
thing was crazy.
Extra point.
Yeah. So, the Bills played as bad as they could have against Houston. And I'm going to throw this back to you with the Superman thing.
Yep.
They played as bad as they could against Houston. But if they make the extra point, they kick a field goal on the one series, and then they're possibly playing for the win at that. And even with that, they would have had a 4th and 1 that they could have snuck or ran the ball if Dion doesn't get a horrible false start penalty. You look at the loss against New England. They fumble the ball on a tight end around to Dawson Knox, which is
beat themselves that game through and through.
Crazy. You have Keon Coleman fumbling.
Allen turnover in the red zone.
Allen turnover in the red zone. And you're down 10 in the fourth quarter. Yet you still tie it up. And then Drake May avoids a sack and somehow turns it into a miraculous first down. And Drake May had a couple improvised game plays throughout that were Josh Allen-esque that really helped the Patriots win. But they needed all of that. New England needed all of that just to escape with a close win. Josh Allen didn't need to be superhuman in that game. The Bills just needed to not be sloppy in that game. I look at this isn't and I'll acknowledge, Superman Josh won the Ravens game. Superman Josh won the Bengals game. But you even look at the Miami and the Atlanta games where things went really wrong. And defense contributed to those. But I just think there's this thought process that, when the Bills lose, it's because, Josh wasn't Superman. Josh, they're not losing often because Josh isn't Superman. They're often losing because either one, in cases of the Atlanta and the Miami games, more so the Atlanta game, the defense doesn't show up, or two, they're making uncharacteristic mistakes. They're turning the ball over. They're giving the other team good field position, and they're giving games away. So I almost want to say more the Superman Josh is needed when they're playing an opponent that they can only keep up with when Josh is going off and they're needing to go toe-to-toe. There's not many teams in this AFC right now that the Bills need to go probably toe-to-toe with. I'm not saying that they're going to hold every team down to 20 points, but I would say this.
The upside's not there.
Yes, the upside for some of these opponents aren't there. When the Bills go up against Kansas City in the AFC Championship last year, and he nearly throws 2 interceptions on the first drive, you're already shitting a brick because you're like,
yes.
God, we just wasted an offensive possession. When he misses Curtis Samuel, who's wide open for what could be a 30-yard gain, you're like, that's going to haunt us later. When you're playing the Houston Texans, I don't think you're scared to death that, oh my God, we had to punt it here. And same to be said against the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Denver Broncos and some of these other teams. So I think why I feel different, and I'm not saying these defensive teams can't hold the Bills down and cause problems because we've seen the Bills lose to quality defensive teams. It's that I think when the Bills go up against a dominant offense, it's a more scary feeling for the Bills because Josh feels the pressure to be perfect, and he thinks he has to be Superman in those games. And that is when he has that adrenaline, and I think he makes sometimes the great moments and the bad moments. But if he's playing teams that theoretically the Bills should be able to at least contain or not let run away from us, I think Josh is going to be more within himself, not pressing, not psychologically. I think he will be more secure with following what the strategy is. Now, the strategy could fail. They could fall short. The defense could still suck. But if the Bills defense allows 35 points against the Denver Broncos or the Pittsburgh Steelers, then you clearly have okay, that's an issue. Then you can't be well, it's just Mahomes and Burrow. And then all of it kind of falls off Josh's shoulders. I think when Josh is going up against a Burrow and going up against a Mahomes, he's looking at it as these are career legacy games. This is how I'm remembered. This is going to be what I am thought of forever. And we've always talked about Sugar High Josh. But I think the problem with Sugar High Josh, even though we've had moments 13 seconds where he was the best quarterback in the world at that moment, is in the playoffs, every possession matters. And I think sometimes the Bills have had possessions where they've wasted in big moments because they've been a little bit too high adrenaline. And what my hope is, by facing a different set of opponents that still respect them, don't have that same level of belief in, that maybe Josh will be able to be more secure with following what he needs to do rather than feeling like I have to do this myself. And I think that makes a difference. And I'll ask you a question. I know that I was trying to just ask you a quick question. I turned on talking for like 6 minutes. But what are your thoughts on that? Like, if you're OP and you're playing like, I don't know, like St. Mary's in Lancaster, you're not too scared. But if you're OP and you're playing Bennett, you're going to be a little scared at quarterback, Carson, because you know what? Those Bennett defensive linemen, they're coming after you.
Yeah, it's you know the caliber of your opponent. I think that's a big thing. When, for example, if you're playing old teams like Kansas City, or you're playing a team maybe like Houston this year, they're just a hot commodity, so I'll go with them. Or a defense like Denver, you're going to have to eventually make a play because they're going to be making everything difficult just because they're that good. Everything's going to come difficult, whether that's a 4-yard run or whether that's a 3-yard out route that you're going to throw. Those windows start to become a little tighter. And even if this is just a mental thing, maybe they aren't that tighter. Maybe they're not, more difficult. It's just that mental thing that your coaching staff's going to preach to you the whole game, your quarterback coach, your offensive coordinator. Hey, we're going to have to be efficient with the ball this week. It's okay to maybe punt sometimes. That mindset sometimes does kick in. And maybe that makes you a little bit more conservative sometimes. I don't think intimidated is the right word, right? But at the end of the day, like the team that I'm going against, the margin of error becomes a lot slimmer. So I'm going to have to be that much better. And Bundt, you say it all the time, when sometimes added pressure is thrown on, you're more likely to do things that maybe you wouldn't do, if you're playing the deaf and the blind or a team that's maybe like Cleveland, right? So for better or for worse, sometimes that's going to make you better. Sometimes it's going to make you rise to the occasion. Or there's always a good saying, sometimes you fall to the level of your training. So in that case, how you train in that situation could result directly in how you play. We've seen Josh 13 seconds, but we've also seen times where collectively as a whole group, I'm not singling anyone out here, but they come up short. Last year, they were a shoestring tackle away on an Amari Cooper screenplay that I don't think gets talked enough about, from Amari Cooper probably going to the house. Like, they called an all-out blitz. Spags gets aggressive. I think it was on 3rd and 8. They throw the screen, and man, oh man, that play, like, Coop's probably gone. Like, I get he right now runs a 5-flat 40, but still, like, it's just gone. And then 4th and 8, Josh heaves the prayer up. Kincaid doesn't come down with it. There's some protection issues there too, and everything like that. It's just, like when the opponent is you're aware that everything matters, and even one little mess up could be the difference. Of course, that's going to impact your mentality, and sometimes that does impact your performance.
Yep, and it's a great point by both of you, and I was going to just jump on with that, where this team has been so streaky, and you can see the confidence permeate on them when they're playing well, and you can see it on them when they're not playing well. Like, the body language shows everything. They wear their heart on their sleeve. It's what makes them great. It's what makes them the unit that they are. It's also what has been a hindrance to them. The fact that Allen could go into this run and know what the field could be ahead of him, I think bodes everything to him, because he's been the experience of being there so many times and being able, as you said, Carson, to go back on that training. That part of that training is playoff experience and being in those big moments and being able to call back to all these different scenarios that they've been in as a unit, but also knowing that you don't have to, like you just said, don't have to be perfect all game in a lot of these scenarios. And you can play, Bundt, as you said, play within himself more and pull out the Superman stuff sometimes, and not have to do it, not thinking that he has to do it from the first snap. He can be more selective when he pulls that out. I think that's a big underrated thing heading into this field, and that's a big reason why right now the Bills are looked at as the favorite, because it's the margin for error in this playoff field, the way it looks, is much greater than it has been in years past for the Buffalo Bills, even though the path may look a little more difficult because of the where they are at playoff experience wise.
Is it even more difficult though? Like that's the thing. Like, everybody's saying because they're playing on the road, and yes, like road versus home makes a difference. But like, I don't think it is. The Bills' run defense has started to get a little bit better. And that's something to take stock into. This is one of those things where if the Bills had Michael Hoyt and Ed Oliver right now, I think we'd be talking a different story.
Ed Oliver, I just saw on Twitter Ed Oliver doing push-ups. So Ed Oliver,
I think good sign.
So what was interesting about Ed Oliver with the bicep is they showed the regular time frame. But I saw Ian Rappaport when he first came out with everything. He basically said the Bills think it's a 50-50 that he could be back by the wild card round. This was like the original reporting. So I don't think this is your typical bicep. It is a – pardon me if I got it wrong. What was that?
Yep. Yeah, you're right, bicep.
The typical recovery time. And then he said even if he wasn't back for the wild card, they seemed confident he would be back by around the divisional round. If you have Ed Oliver and he is 85 to 90%, that makes a difference for your defensive line, especially if he's getting pressure. And if Bosa is another huge key here. If you have healthy, and I know you got to wrap up soon, so I'll just keep this quick. If you have a healthy Bosa and Ed Oliver in the playoffs, and you have Shaq Thompson doing this thing, this defense – yes, they'll struggle against the Mahomes. They'll struggle against the Burrows. They won't need to face one of those. And if you can hold these teams to under 24 points and you have Josh Allen, you should expect to win the game. And you know what people don't talk about the Bills when they talk about the playoffs? All these road performances, the Bills outside of the first AFC Championship against Kansas City, the one where they got dominated, they've had a chance to win. The Bills almost beat the Texans in the wild card round in Josh Allen's first playoff game. They had the 13 seconds game. They had the AFC Championship last year. The Bills haven't just gone on the road and gotten their ass kicked most of these playoff games. Like, they still bring it. And somebody had a good thing. Nothing ever goes the way you think. When you think you're the best, normally you don't win. When you assume you're out of it, that's when you surprise people.
That's true.
And I almost feel, and I said this earlier, they could go on a run or they could lose by 20 in the first round to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm starting to get some vibes, if it's Pittsburgh that wins the AFC North, that we could be seeing this Bills team in the Super Bowl. And I'll say this, if it's not the Bills, this will be the most disappointed I will have been during the entire era, because I can understand if they fall short against Cincinnati or Kansas City. 90% of NFL teams would during the last 5 years. And here's the last thing I'll say too. We always talk about home field advantage and how important it is. And it is important. I truly do believe it's important. The Bills have been almost unbeatable at home the last couple of years. Say the Bills were the 1 seed and they played Houston like right away, I think that actually would be a tougher matchup than going Pittsburgh-Jacksonville going forward. So, like, I'm not saying like I would still love 1 seed in like home field advantage, but if there was a year where you're like, yeah, it might not be the worst thing to go on the road, it's this year.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not to that point yet where I'm expecting the Bills.
I'm not saying I would rather be a wild card team than win the AFC East. I obviously would take the AFC East in the 1 seed every time, Carson. What I'm trying to say is this. If your path is Pittsburgh-Jacksonville, you're talking about the easiest path you could have ever had to get to an AFC championship. Like, let's be real. If it's Pittsburgh, if it's the 5-4 game and you're playing Pittsburgh, you already just beat that team in a game that mattered to them. And you played as sloppy in the first half as you could have. And you controlled the entire game from the second half on. And then Jacksonville, yes, Jacksonville could beat the Bills. Jacksonville's been a thorn in the Bills' side when games matter. But if you're playing Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars in mid-January in a divisional round, do you know what that crowd's going to look like? It's going to be 40% Bills fans. And if anything, it's going to be like 60 degrees. Josh Allen will be able to throw the ball. He'll be able to have his guys. Like, that's perfect. That's what you want if you're the Bills. You don't want to go to play New England in the snow, a team that's used to it. get me because that's the thing with these 1 and the 2 seeds. Denver and New England, they're used to the bad elements. So Denver and New England were coming to Buffalo. You're really not gaining much in terms of weather advantage. I'd rather play teams like the Steelers that are limited in offensively. I'd rather play a Jacksonville team in Florida or have the Chargers come to Buffalo and have these weird scenarios. I'll say this. If the Bills beat New England this week, I would not be surprised if they're the AFC favorite for the rest of the season going into the playoffs.
For sure. Well, what do we think is going to happen now? Let's get into these predictions and get out of here with this New England game. Carson, you first, buddy.
Yeah, I brought it up earlier on the broadcast. It's strength versus strength, weakness versus weakness. Bills rushing attack, one of the best in the league, if not the best. They're playing the third-ranked run defense in the league, and we saw, first time we played New England, it was a little bit of back and forth right up front. And then for them offensively, they have the 21st ranked rushing attack in the league. Bills rushing defense, has been better as of late, but I think that's kind of the well-known thing around the league is, hey, if you can run on them, you got a decent chance. Their run defense isn't very good. We've been 30th or worse for a majority of the season. We're just starting to make our way out of the cellar right now. And then you look at the red zone, 24th ranked red zone offense for the Patriots, not very good. Everything else, they are 8th or better in the league as far as your typical important stats go. And then defensively, they have the worst red zone defense in the league. So right there, those are two opportunities the Bills have to cash in on. And also, you go back to the first game we played them this year. What did the Bills do? They lost the game via turnover battle. Pats had some turnovers themselves with a fumble and everything like that. But the Bills, they can't shoot themselves in the foot. Keon fumbles it. We run a jet sweep to Dawson Knox on 4th and 1. That doesn't work at all. And then you have, red zone interception from Josh Allen as well. And that's your difference in the game right there and then. And even that, you're 3 points off. Borregales has a, not walk-off field goal, but leaves the Bills with like 5 seconds or something like that left. And that's just kind of how it went out. So I think the Bills got to clean that stuff up. And we've seen to a certain extent, especially, as of late, the Bills have forced turnovers as well. James Cook's had to hang on to the football a little bit better. They've played a cleaner style of football and a cleaner style of, physicality as well. We've seen that as well. They've been more physical as of late. And give me the Bills in this one, 34-27. Last 2 weeks, I predicted the Bills to lose, and they won. So I guess I'm kind of risking it here. Knock on wood, though, and my record with Bills predictions have been horrible. But give me the Bills 34-27 over the Pats. They just can't beat themselves. They got to capitalize in the red zone.
Yeah, I'm struggling with this one because I picked against the Bills the last 2 weeks, and I'm trying to decide if I should do a gimmick here or do what I really believe. And the gimmick would be talk up the Bills, talk up what Vegas is saying, and then be like Patriots 24-21, and just keep picking against the Bills every single week because I believe it's a reverse jinx and leading them to winning the AFC East. And then I will really be tested when it's Cleveland next week and I pick the Browns over the Bills. Then it gets a little bit not believable at that point. The Bills were 7.5-point favorites, 7-point favorites at home when they played Sunday Night Football and the rivalry jersey game. And you look back, they had 3 turnovers. They kind of gave the game to New England. And Drake May was stellar with his improvising. And New England almost needed all the big moments to go their way. They needed Bills to make mistakes. And still it went down to a field goal. And you think about it, New England's won 10 games in a row. 10 games in a row. And they're a point and a half under. And they're a point and a half point underdog. At home. That's what the metrics tell me. This is one of those games. It's going to be a big learning opportunity for me watching them. Because if New England can sweep Buffalo, then I have to give them the respect that they deserve. I can't – if New England beats the Bills and they sweep them, I can't go and be like, well, you know what? They've beaten up on nobody. Well, they beat up on us twice then. And then I have to respect them. And then I go into the playoffs, and I don't say that the Bills can't beat them in the playoffs, but I go into the playoffs with a little bit more of a cautious, this is going to be tough. Like, this ain't going to be easy. But at the same time, if the Bills go into New England, they win by like 10, 14 points. You're going to go into the playoffs thinking like, okay, bring it on to what happens. And I think the part that's tricky to me is with the Bills being a 1.5-point favorite, if this game was in Buffalo, they're probably favored by 3.5, 4 points in this game.
Yep.
Like probably 3.5 points. And what am I? That means they think the Bills are still the better team. They think Buffalo's still the better team. And I know the NFL is not scripted, and I know things aren't rigged, I think, at least. But like, the NFL knows drama. And for whatever reason, the storybook stuff normally plays out a little bit storybook at times. And you think about it. New England clinching the AFC East with 4 weeks left in the regular season, or like whatever it is, 3 weeks left in the regular season, that seems a little bit crazy to me. And if New England loses, and then they play Baltimore next week, and then the Bills beat Cleveland, they lose to Baltimore, you have a tie division with 2 weeks left, knowing that whatever happens week 18 determines the AFC East. And as much as I don't want to make a prediction based on how things can play out, I think we might be going down to the wire week 18 once again, to where the Bills beat the Jets and they get a little bit of a miracle from Miami. They could be the 1 seed or the 2 seed. And could you imagine somehow a situation where Denver loses to KC, they lose to the Chargers, and next thing you know, New England loses to the Ravens in Miami, and the Bills end up hosting the divisional round, and it goes through Buffalo. Like, it's so unlikely, but DVOA still gives it a 19% chance. And 19% chance is like the Sabres' odds of winning tonight against the Edmonton Oilers. So, you never know. So, long-winded answer, I'm picking the Bills 24-21. I'm deciding to be serious tonight. I wanted to pick the Patriots just as a joke, but I'm going to pick the Bills 24-21. And my final thoughts are this. If the Bills lose the game, I hope Bills Mafia doesn't overreact to it, because in the long term, they still have they still have the Browns and the Jets. They're probably going to get to 11 wins, and that'll probably end up giving them either the 5 or the 6 seed. And as long as they are the 5 or 6 seed, you are probably playing the Jaguars or the Steelers in the first round, which means every scenario you want is still in front of you.
Well said. Well said. I think you said it best there at the beginning. That first game in New England, the Bills have beaten themselves. They've beaten themselves a lot of games this year, 1-4. When they lose the turnover battle this year, it explains away most of their losses. We talked about it earlier with the changing and wanting Allen to protect the ball more and having that defense need to be able to create some more turnovers. And that was, I think, a trend they showed in that Bengals game where Allen protected the ball. He was smart with it. Their only turnover was obviously James Cook, who's going to have to figure out that fumbling issue he's had in the last couple of weeks in the cold. But adding that variance on defense, blitzing a little more, changing up what they do on third down, bringing more man, bringing more pressure is an effort to create more turnovers and win that turnover battle more. I think they know that they have to protect the ball in this game against New England. And if they would have done it the first time, they would have won. I think they're the better team than New England. I think winning 11 games in a row in the NFL is a hard thing. And I love, in any scenario, love to go against big winning streaks or go in favor of a losing streak snapping, just because these things tend to break. I got the Bills winning by double digits, 31-20. I think this is a statement. The Bills are taking over the AFC again, even if they don't end up winning the division. And I think that I would be mystified if they get swept by this New England team. I think New England's good. I don't think they're that good. So that's where I'm at with this. So we're all on the Bills. We paid the bills. Shout out to our sponsor, Picasso's Pizza at PicassoPizza.net. Go watch the Sabres game. Everybody tuning in here. Go follow Crossing Swords for their live game coverage. And we'll be back next week. Hopefully, one way or the other, people are going to be feeling strongly. That's all we can guarantee. So we'll be back to break it all down. Thank you for AJ joining earlier. Thank you, Carson. Thank you, Bundt. Have a great night, folks. Go Bills.